Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, AmTrust Title Insurance Company, Perfect Building Maintenance, M&T Bank, Customers Bank, Marks Paneth LLP, Capital One Bank, Collins Building Services, Meridian Capital Group. Additional support has been provided by grants from AKA Hotel Residences Corman Communities, Ariel Property Advisors, Amerant Bank, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Briarwood Organization, Chase Commercial Mortgage Lending, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Citizens Bank, Dime Community Bank, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties LLC, Handler Real Estate Organization, Hodges Ward Elliott INC, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Casamatides Red Apple Group, Keysight Capital Partners, Matone Group, New Banks, Newmark Knight Frank, Ocean First Bank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Services, Stonehenge NYC, SVN CPEX Real Estate Services, Tierra CRG, the Meringer Family Foundation, and these friends. Welcome to the second part of the Outlook for Real Estate in light of the COVID. My name is Michael Stoller, and my guests today include Andrew Joblin, Robert Verone, and Tony Feynman. If you were going back to your old days, as Big Loan Verone and with Mr. Feynman over there, if you had a hotel loan, would you try to sell the note?
It all depends on what your liquidity issues are, right? I mean, it depends. If I had a repo facility and a repo lender with a gun to my head, maybe. But would you sell your house the first day a crisis hit? No, this isn't a great time to sell anything, right? Unless you need
Yeah, the good and the bad of hotels are they're nightly leases, right? So when hotels fall off, they fall off very sharply. But when they come back, they do come back quicker than other asset classes, given the fact that it is nightly leases. So, I think there's a school of thought out there on the lending side is let's, wait to see what happens, in the next 90 days to try to see this thing through. And if there's any success in the country opening back up without a massive spike, the hotels could be okay.
And I think all of you have been involved with the financing or the acquisitions of office buildings. Now with social distancing and other rules and changes over there, with the elevators and all the other type of requirements, do you see office buildings decreasing in value?
I'm going to answer that one carefully. I know who your good friends are.
Not in Manhattan.
I think there's two schools of thought on this. There's a lot of chatter of, everyone's getting so used to work from home and there's no real need. I can tell you as someone that has a young kid, it's great to be home with them, and it's a unique time that I'll likely never have a chance to do again. But there's a lot of folks that have 3 or 4 kids and a household that they can't wait to get back to the office. So I think back office may shrink a little bit in the near term if there is the opportunity, and you may see some of those functions move more to a rotating work from home. But I think for deal level folks and people that really need to brainstorm with others, they're going to want to be in the office and they're going to want to interact with their colleagues. I think it's very important. And a lot of people miss the human touch element of it. I mean, Zoom is great. It's fantastic technology. God knows what we've done with this crisis pandemic before Zoom. But I think people are very excited to get back to their offices.
Rob, what do you see with regard to the valuations of office buildings?
No, I would not bet against cities like New York or gateway cities, and smart people own these buildings and they'll figure it out. And maybe more people work from home, but maybe you need more square footage because you're spread out a little bit. But I think we're completely ignoring that there may be a vaccine in 12 months, and like you couldn't even redesign a floor plan in 12 months.
I would say there's a theory for any direction you want to go in, right? Like Rob just said, there's a certain part of the population that will go back and not be concerned about this and not be concerned about sitting in a cube and not be worried about it. But there's a percentage of people that are probably going to take a little longer to get through this, and they're going to want more square footage. The working from home thing, I think I'll go a step further than what Andrew said. I think it's very easy in the first 3 weeks of this to say that working from home works. I think it's very easy. I think I want to see people working from home, consisting like this for 9 months, for a year, for 2 years, and besides all the, the stuff that we're obviously joking about the what comes along with that, like your wife walking in and not realizing you're on a, webinar with 200 people. Besides that kind of stuff, there also is, you do like to sit in the office and collaborate with people and mess around. That's how stuff that's productive. It's not as productive to sit in your house and talk to people on a screen when you can get them. So I just think the demise of working in an office collaboratively, I think, is way overdone.
What's your thoughts with regard to co-working? Co-working in general?
I think it's going to have to be reimagined a little bit, given just the density per square foot that these things are packed into. But it is such a great engine. I mean, look, I started our company in a WeWork, and we're fortunate to grow out of there. But I'm not ashamed of that. I think it was an awesome experience. We've met a lot of like-minded entrepreneurs, and there is definitely a benefit of keeping your costs down and not having a long-term commitment, especially as you look in different markets. And if you're wanting to test out, hey, do I want to open an office here or there, rather than signing a traditional 10-year lease if it doesn't work out, you've got short-term flexibility. There's a lot of great benefits of it. I think it gets a bad name because of the meteoric rise of WeWork, and at its core, the idea is I think is great.
The last thing that Andrew just said is significant. I mean, I joked about co-working means so many different things to so many people, but the short-term nature of the leases, the collaboration, it'll change a little bit. You might not have as much density, but you're still going to have the concept of co-working.
I like what Sam Zell said. He said they're all going to go back to Starbucks, right? It's going to. We're going to go back to.
I heard Sam talk about that. Sam Zell's comment is he said
they like to talk to new people. I like the people I like. I don't need to meet someone and hang out with them all day long in a new facility. And I'd rather have 10 people I know really well and sit around them.
Another thing that's come up over the last couple of years is Airbnb, Sounder, and so on. Where do you see the Airbnb in light of the hospitality crisis?
I think certainly in the short term, as this is fresh in people's mind, Airbnb is going to have to come up with some more stringent, cleanliness policies and things based around sterilization, et cetera. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a tough sled. But at the same time, would you rather rent a house or be in a hotel that's densely populated with a lot of people running through there? So there's pros and cons to it all, but I think definitely long term, it's a very viable business model. It's something that's going to be around for a long time, but short term, they probably have to ratchet up the standards a bit.
And I think the issue with Airbnb is not that model goes away. It's that in the short term, some of the inventory might go away, or you might have a hard time with the inventory. The inventory might change hands for a little while, so there might be some disruption there. But that disruption could coincide with the lack of customers.
Since I have two individuals who are physically located in Florida, Tony and Andrew, what do you see about the Florida business, the condo business and the hospitality business in light of what's happening today, short term and in long term?
I'm personally very bullish on this state. There's a lot of reasons why I think more and more people will spend more time here. there isn't the density that exists in other places that I think people are fearful of. The tax situation is very good down here. The hotel market will obviously need to grow out of this crisis and this situation, and there will be those that survive and those that don't. In the long run, I don't. If anything, I think that there'll be more people coming here, and the condo market will be just, will not be impacted ultimately negatively by this. I think Florida is going to continue to grow as it has. I think that this is obviously this will be a dent in that track, but I think there's great upside down here.
Yeah, Florida has weathered the storm fairly well through these types of situations. I mean, Zika really hurt the hotel market for the short term. Then it came roaring back. People love to be in Florida. I've heard a lot of folks that have literally, I can think of 7 friends in the last 6 weeks that have said, hey, I think I'm moving down finally from New York. So whether that's, condo, houses, whatever, it's a real thing. I mean, New York's is there's no city in the world like it, but when you step back and look at what's important in life and the health of your family, and and you see a pandemic like this take over and be so tragic to New York, you have to wonder and sort of reprioritize where you want to be. And I think a lot of people are saying, hey, you know what, the taxes, the political environment in New York, I think you're going to see some people, but again, New York always has a way of coming roaring back.
I don't think that New York's going away. I don't think that some of the big markets are going away, but I think, and like I said before, I don't think that we're all going to be working from home for the next 5 years. Similar to what this did to retail, added, numbers to the e-commerce world. There are people that realize you can spend some time out of the office, still be productive. And like Andrew, I know a couple of people that happened to be down here when it happened, that have been down here for a month now, and thought to themselves, this really isn't that bad. This is kind of a nice place to live, a nice place to be with my family. So hopefully he does the 10 people that he knows and wants to be around, they're still up there. So.
Andrew, you own multifamily residential in New York. Rob, you finance multifamily residential in New York and New Jersey, and a very large property last year in Jersey City. Tony, you've been involved with the financing. How do you see the residential market in the metropolitan area in light of the June 14th actions, in light of the potential rent strikes, in light of the taxes and everything else of difficulty of doing business? Andrew, since you were an investor here.
Yeah, we do not own any multi any longer. Thankfully. Look, it's tough. I think, I mentioned it as one of the negatives of New York is the political environment. And I think, it's becoming very challenging to do business there. But I think some of it is fair. There was, a shortage of affordable housing, and I think that's absolutely necessary. But rent strikes and things like that, and politicians supporting that is unacceptable. Ultimately, it feels like whether it's retail or multifamily or office, the landlord's kind of the one getting stuck, especially because the lenders aren't being super forgiving. If they're going to do anything, it's they're going to spread it over your term or add it to your principal balance. But at the end of the day, you're still responsible for paying your loan, and you have no income to do it. You shouldn't be the one getting stuck with it.
I mean, Rob, you've done a lot of financing recently on the multifamily residential, including Brooklyn and Jersey City. Where do you see the market?
I'm pro-US, pro-New York, and like long-term, we'll figure it out. The politics are a little left-leaning right now in terms of disincentivizing certain actions, but that could change and will change, and we'll figure out how to get more affordable housing. And I'm bullish long-term, always on New York.
I think the politics, the local and state politics in New York are way more significant of a negative long-term impact on multifamily housing than the coronavirus is. To Andrew's point, there was probably some need for some type of correction with some of the laws, but the swing was just so drastic. I'm not really sure that, it'll be very interesting to see what the reaction is from the politicians to I will call it the coronavirus that added a layer of angst to the multifamily business in New York City, because they can either help to bring it back or they can help to further decimate it. I guess I'm with Rob in that in the long term, it all evens out. There's, at some level, it all makes sense. There's not going to be a mass migration of enough people out of the market to really impact it, but there's some pains that are going to be suffered over the course of the next couple of years. But I think it has way more to do with the politics than it does to do with this virus.
But look at it this way: if you're under 30 and you're motivated and you want to make money, you're going to go to Austin, you're going to go to New York, maybe you're going to go to LA. You're not going to go maybe a little bit of Nashville. You're not going to hang out in Buffalo. You're just not doing it, right? So there's always going to be people wanting to New York. And if you're 55 and your kids are done with high school, done with college, you don't want to stay in the suburbs. You're going to want to go to a city also. So there's two, other than that gap in the middle where you have school and you have kids.
That's the reason why it will always be there in the long run. But in terms of the current state of affairs, the recent actions and the environment in general has had the most significant impact I've seen in the 25 or 30 years that I've been, watching what goes on in New York, right?
Here's a question about the role of alternative lenders. Andrew, you have a fund. You could be lending money today. Rob, you've been all varieties of things. Tony, you are a semi-alternative lender. Do you see alternative lenders being more active, or do you see balance sheet banks going back into business?
I don't actually see this changing in that landscape. I think I say I don't see it changing the trajectory of that landscape. The alternative lending space or the non-bank lending space has continued to grow, and a lot of the times the lines have blurred. The higher end of the bank pricing and the lower end of the non-bank pricing. There's a significant slowdown in the marketplace today, but when the market comes back at whatever level it is, I think that the non-bank lenders are here to stay, and they'll continue to carve more and more space out of the market. That's what I think.
Where do you see the opportunities within a year, depending on the vaccine, and which markets do you see as opportunities? Because I heard that, Andrew was talking about Austin, where you have a large investment. Virginia is another market. Where do you see, and what type of opportunities do you see?
Regardless of whether you're an optimist, you're a pessimist or an optimist about how long this lasts and what the recovery looks like, I clearly think that there will be some pain felt over the coming months and years, and so I think there's, those of us with capital probably will have an opportunity to recapitalize deals, which wasn't the case for many years. I think that the market's been fairly frothy and fairly efficient and tight. So I think there's going to be some opportunities there. To Andrew's first point, the one thing that will probably come out of this is that retail is going to be even a little more challenged than it was. There was obviously a change happening, or a massive change has been happening for a long time. And I don't think this did anything other than to exacerbate that change. I don't think the opportunity is to reimagine those situations probably.
Rob?
I'm a slow and steady guy, so I think if you find the right deal in the right city, you work it. It's much better than being a teller at a bank, right? I think real estate is a great business long term, very tax efficient for a lot of people, and will continue.
For any tellers that are listening in, there's nothing wrong with that job, by the way.
I was a bank teller in high school. Look, I think it's kind of continue to be in a little bit of these secondary markets like Austin, Nashville, the Research Triangle in North Carolina. I think you're just seeing a lot of migration of companies and talent wanting to live there and be there. So I think that continues. And then, as we talked about New York a lot and people getting really negative on it, if there is price discovery there and, New York does become, distressed and everyone's negative, and that's when I think, we lean into stuff like that and start really paying attention to it and looking at it, because, New York is the most resilient market in the world, I think. And so to make money there, you gotta kind of lean into it when others are scared running away from it. So I think that's a very likely opportunity down the road.
I'd like to thank Tony, Rob, and Andrew. This is Mike Stoller for the AmTrust webinar series. And we'll be back next week with another installment talking about
Thanks,
the.
Michael.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Michael.
Right.